In the criminal underworld, there's a term, Sha Zhu Pan. It translates to the pig butchering scam.
I won't blame anybody, I'll blame myself. Because I had the money.
The metaphor is brutal, but accurate. First you find the prey, then you feed them. You feed them compliments, you feed them trust, and you feed them fake returns on investments. You make them fat and happy. And finally, when they are at their biggest, you slaughter them. You take everything they have. But to run a slaughterhouse, you need butchers. And in the coastal cities of Cambodia, the butchers are not volunteers, they are prisoners. This is the story of Fan, a cook from Fujian who wanted a job, but found himself a slave in a billion-dollar criminal empire. For years, Fan's life was simple. It was defined by the heat of the stove and the noise of his older sister's restaurant. He was a cook, it was honest work, but then the economy turned, the restaurant closed down. Fan was drifting, working for a food delivery app, making pennies for miles of travel. He was desperate for a future. In March 2021, that future appeared in the form of a message. It seemed like the golden ticket, a marketing position for a well-known food delivery company. The location, Cambodia. The salary, $1,000 a month. By local standards, this was a fortune, and the company was offering everything: a free flight ticket, visa support, and a corporate career. Fan was so excited he called his older brother, who was already working in Cambodia. They decided to seize this opportunity together. Two brothers, one dream. When they landed in Phnom Penh, the capital, the world was still in the grip of the COVID-19 pandemic.
China has identified the cause of the mysterious new virus,
coronavirus.
They had to spend 2 weeks in hotel quarantine. Those 2 weeks were quiet. Everything seemed professional. Everything seemed normal. It was the calm before the storm. The moment quarantine ended, the illusion cracked. A van picked them up, but they weren't taken to a corporate office or a marketing firm. They were driven to a walled condominium complex, tall fences, security guards, a fortress. They were told their training would begin in April, but when they sat down at the desk, there were no lessons on food delivery. There were no lessons on marketing strategies. Fan and his brother were seated in front of computers and given scripts. Fan realized the truth immediately. This wasn't a job, it was a prison. Instead of legitimate work, they were taught how to commit online fraud. Their target demographic was mostly Germans. Their job was to befriend them, gain their trust, and force them into fake online brokerages. Fan and his brother wanted to leave immediately, but the bosses gave them a simple, cold equation. "You are free to go," they said. "Just pay us $7,000 each." Bosses claimed it was for travel expenses from China to Cambodia, for the flight and for the food that they were given on a daily basis. But Fan and his brother didn't have $7,000. They hadn't been paid a single cent yet. And just like that, the trap snapped shut. What was supposed to be a career-changing opportunity had turned into a nightmare, and for 6 months, they were held in Phnom Penh. Every day was the same: wake up and carry out the duties of scamming the strangers, then report back to the managers, and then go to sleep. But the syndicate had bigger plans. After 6 months of primary training, the bosses decided to move to the Sihanoukville, a coastal city that has become legendary for all the wrong reasons. Sihanoukville was once a simple beach town with normal people and normal lifestyles. But in just a few years, it was drastically transformed by the flood of foreign investment into a neon-lit metropolis of casinos and dormitories. It had become the Wild West of the East. When the move happened, the bosses gave Fan and his brother an ultimatum: pay the $7,000 now, or get in the van to serve us. Brothers didn't have the money, so their choice was obvious. They got in the van. They ended up on the upper floors of a hotel and casino called the White Sand Palace. If Phnom Penh was a prison, the White Sand Palace was a torture chamber. The violence here was open. Fan witnessed a worker being beaten half to death by guards. Now their routine had become more tough and more demanding. A few weeks later, a glimmer of hope appeared. A man approached Fan. He whispered that he could get them out of this hell. Desperate and naive, Fan and his brother trusted him. They slipped out of the White Sand Palace to save themselves from further humiliation. But in Sihanoukville, trust is a dangerous currency. They weren't being rescued. They were being sold. The man drove them to another large complex called the Arc de Triomphe, and the price of their new freedom, it had just gone up. The debt wasn't $7,000 anymore. It was now $11,700 per person. Life at the Arc de Triomphe was a regime of exhaustion. Fan slept in a cramped dorm room with metal bunk beds, sharing the air with 4 or 5 other men. His shift was brutal. He worked from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Then again, from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. Inside the walls, there was a casino and a karaoke bar designed to keep the money circulating inside the compound. Fan's only escape was a fantasy warfare game on his phone. For a few minutes before sleep, he wasn't a prisoner, he was a warrior. This was all the fun he could get, just a few minutes of gameplay to make him feel he was still alive. But during work hours, he was forced to be a thief. The bosses increased the demand again. Now, they wanted $23,400 for both brothers. They were paid on commission, meaning the more fraud they committed, the closer they got to freedom. Fan hated it. He had a conscience. He despised every minute of it. The most he ever extracted was $30,000 from a single victim. It was a massive score. Instead of celebrating, he went into the database and deleted the victim's contact information so they couldn't be targeted again by his colleagues. Other people on his team didn't share his hesitation. Some extracted up to $500,000 from a single person. In January 2022, Fan made a desperate move. He found the Facebook page of the governor of Sihanoukville province. He sent a message asking for help. Remarkably, the governor's office responded. They asked for his phone number, then the police called. But in Sihanoukville, the line between the police and the syndicates is often blurry. The bosses found out about Fan report to the governor's office. They were furious. They dragged Fan and his brother into an office. Fan was forced to watch as his brother read from a prepared script in front of a camera. "We are here voluntarily," he said. "We have taken a personal loan. We are happy." When Fan returned to his desk, the boss approached him. He slapped Fan across the face and threw a heavy water bottle at him. He looked Fan in the eye and said, "It doesn't even matter if you die in here. Killing you would be easy. No one would care." It wasn't an empty threat. At least 6 bodies of Chinese men had recently been found in the Sihanoukville marshlands. After the police report, Fan and his brother were labeled as troublemakers. They were damaged goods, so they were sold again. They were shipped back toward Phnom Penh to another fraud operation. And their debt increased again. It was now $15,500 each. February 2022. The new bosses were less strict than the previous ones. Occasionally, they allowed workers to step outside the gates. Fan saw an opening. He told the guards he wanted to meet a friend. The bosses agreed. Why? Because they still held Fan's brother inside. They believed Fan would never abandon his own blood. It was collateral, but Fan knew this was the only way. He walked out the gate, and he didn't come back. Instead, once he was safe, he coordinated with his brother. His brother called the police from the inside. And this time, with Fan on the outside applying pressure, the police actually helped. His brother was released, but the syndicate demanded one last humiliation. His brother had to write a handwritten confession stating he had borrowed $31,000, that he was happy, and that he had never been beaten. A lie for a life. Fan spent his first months of freedom at the Great Wall Hotel, a modest guest house near Phnom Penh's airport. It had become a sort of purgatory for escaped scam workers. It was safe, but it was boring. Most people there were just waiting for flight prices to drop, waiting for China's zero-COVID policy to lift so they could go home. In June, Fan left the hotel. He went into hiding. He is still afraid that bounty hunters might find him, but he has obtained the paperwork to return to China. His passport is still locked in a safe in a scam compound somewhere in Sihanoukville, but he doesn't need it anymore. His father scraped together the money for a flight. Fan has only one dream now. It isn't marketing. It isn't wealth. He wants to return to his family farm. He wants to take care of ducks and chickens. He wants to be safe at his parents' home. As Fan put it, "I won't come out to work again. There's not much future working for other people." He learned the hard way that in the game of the pig butchering scam, you are either the butcher, the pig, or the commodity. And he is just lucky to have survived the slaughter.